if I were to describe what I think is really distinctive about Shakespeare, it would be his extraordinary ability to find fresh ways of saying something that perhaps somebody else had started to say but had never found the unimprovable way of saying. He had an astonishing facility with language, an ear for new words, foreign words that could be adapted and brought in, the creative flexibility with language. And he was very practical, and he was commercial. He knew how to make money out of what the audiences wanted. He knew that brilliantly. He knew how to make money out of property and land. He was very successful in a stack of ways. He was very pragmatic. He was a superb magpie. He was superbly good at seeing what worked for other writers, other poets, other playwrights, and absorbing that mode into his own writing. Just like Hollywood studios. Hollywood studios will see when another studio has a hit, and their next output will have some element that reminds you of the hit that the opposition had. The Burbages couldn't afford to build the Globe with their own money, so they offered shares to some of their immediate colleagues, who included Shakespeare. So that meant that he owned a share in the theatre. He also owned a share in the company, and that meant that as the Lord Chamberlain's men became more successful, he got richer. So he had the enormous advantage, unlike most of his peer playwrights, that he wasn't writing plays as a freelancer. He wasn't writing a play for £20 or £40 and then hoping to make ends meet before the next one. He was writing plays with absolute regularity for his company. And of course, one of the effects that has is that he was writing plays with his colleagues in mind. That will have made an enormous difference to Shakespeare, because he was writing for a given company, and he was writing to the strengths of his clearly extraordinary set of colleagues. So by the end of his time writing for what's now the King's Men, he has achieved a status unlike any other playwright in the period, and he can go back to Stratford and die well off. He wasn't remembered immediately as we might imagine he would be remembered. By the time he dies in 1616, the main playwright for the King's Company is John Fletcher, who Shakespeare wrote some plays with right at the end of his career. And Fletcher's plays pretty much ruled the stage from then on to the closing of the theatres in 1642, when the Civil War got started. It was really the very late 18th century, early 19th century that made the difference in perceptions of Shakespeare. So the Shakespeare that we inherit, the Shakespeare who is a genius for all time, universal, global, those ideas, the notion of genius, the idea that Shakespeare expressed human nature in certain ways, not ideas that he and his peers probably would have recognized, but the way in which we think about selfhood and the way in which we think about a character like Hamlet, who is imagined as being the solo individual focus of a given play, which is somehow what Shakespeare was best at. That's something that had enormous appeal to the Romantics, particularly German Romanticism in the late 18th, early 19th centuries. And it's really, the truth is that the Shakespeare that we know best is one that the Germans invented.